from Deeana's Designs, and I wanted to show you today how to install your new Roman shade. When you order a Roman shade from me, it will be sent to you ready to install, and I've already put the L brackets on the board of the Roman shade. I like to send Roman shades that are only outside mount because when they're sent over the mail, it's too hard to do an inside shade to have it fit properly. I only like to do inside mounts when I'm there to install them myself to make sure there's the proper fit. So that being said, when you receive your Roman shade, it will already be pulled up like this one is. So it looks like this from the back side, and there will be L brackets mounted to the top board here. And they're, depending on the size of the shade, there'll be a different amount of L brackets. They aren't necessarily in a particular, doesn't really matter how far apart they are, it just depends. These L brackets will go directly above the window, and they'll sit right here on top of your windowsill. So they should be able to drill directly into, this should be wood. Most windows are framed out with 2x4s when they're built, so it should go right into wood here. So when you get your package, I've included wood screws, and just in case, I've also included anchors for drywall, but in most cases you're not going to need this, the anchor that is. So I'm going to show you how to do this. It's very simple. Really the only thing you're going to need is a pencil. Hopefully you have this makes life a little bit easier if you have a drill, but if not, you can just use a regular screwdriver. I like to use a level just to make sure, because a lot of windows aren't even level, so you want to make sure that your drape hangs nicely. And then I have a couple of other tools that I'll talk about once we get the shade up. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how I install this. It's very simple. If it's a bigger shade, you probably want someone to help you. If it's like a 2 window side by side or a bay window, it helps to have someone holding it while you do this. And even with the smaller ones, it can be helpful if you have someone show you. Okay, so the first thing that we do is we set our shade up here on top of the windowsill with the L brackets sitting directly on top. And like I said, if you have someone to help you, this is great, especially when it comes to getting these into the wall. So you want your L brackets to sit directly on top of the sill like this, and you want to make sure that your board is centered on the window, or if you don't have a window sill, make sure it's centered on the window, because that's how the measurements were taken. It may go over to the side a little bit, because usually I like to make them go over to the side when they're an outside mount by maybe an inch or 2, so that it covers some of the light. So once you have it centered, make sure that it's level. So if you have a level, just check that it's sitting level on the window. So once you feel sure that your shade is level, and once you feel sure that it's centered on the window, then begin screwing your screws into or screwing your L brackets with your drill right into the wall. And again, if someone can hold it for you, even better. Once you get the first one in, then you can let go, and it makes it a little bit easier. Screws in your pocket, then you can do the rest of them. Okay, so now that I've got it drilled in, I'm just going to release my Roman shade, and it's going to come down. Now, it's a regular cord lock, just like you would have on a mini blind, so you can release it all the way and let it go. And what happens though, the first couple of times you have to help it, and notice, in order for it to be a relaxed Roman shade, it has a bar that's sewn into the back. So don't be alarmed and try to get rid of this bar. That's what makes it make the nice shape that it has. But the first few times you pull up your shade, you're going to have to work with it because it doesn't have the folds memorized yet. So when you pull it up, it's not necessarily going to look great. It's going to do something like that. So you're going to have to give it a little help. So what I do is I pull it from side to side like this and just kind of help each fold along. So play with it a little bit, but know also that it's supposed to have a little bit of a relaxed look, because it is a relaxed. If it doesn't look quite even, you can mess with the sides a little bit by pulling, kind of like you would with a horse on the bridle, and do that. Now there's a couple other tricks, because sometimes you might decide you want to keep your Roman shade lower, and sometimes you might want to keep it higher. But if I decided, because for me, this is my window with my AC unit, that's what we have here in the Northeast, and I mostly just want this so that it keeps the sun out and comes down to cover the AC unit. But what happens is, a lot of times, since I want to keep this lower, I have pulls up here, and then see how it kind of pulls to the side a little bit right here? If I mostly want to keep this down lower all the time, and I see that my shade pulls in, a trick is I can cut out a loop up here. So if you find your shade is pulling in on the sides and you don't like that, and you know that you want to keep your shade at a lower level most of the time, the easiest thing to do is to take a seam ripper and very gently with your seam ripper take your top loop and just take this thread out of the loop. This loop will fall, and just leave it there. Or another alternative, if you're afraid of cutting the fabric and you don't have a seam ripper, is you can take a wire cutter, and these loops are plastic, and you can clip the plastic itself. Just be careful not to cut your cord, because that's obviously an important part of your mechanism. Just be sure also to cut whatever you do to one side, do to the other side. So you have two. If you happen to have another cord in the middle, if you have a large drape, then you would want to do the same thing to the middle. So just do that to both sides. If it goes down very low, and you might have as many as 2 loops you might want to cut if it keeps pulling in. So just depending on how low you want your drape to hang and how much it's pulling in, if it starts pulling in on the sides like that, if you want it very low. So those are a couple of tricks. Decide where you want your drape to hang. If your cords here are too long, you can always cut them. Once you cut them, what I like to do is very carefully, again, singe the ends with a match or lighter. Just barely burn them, and that will keep them from fraying. Tie them in a knot, singe them, and you can put the wood cord knob back on, and then you won't have any frayed knots. I also included in your bag with your screws a couple of extra loops, just in case there's a problem and a loop comes loose for some reason. You can hand sew it back on, much like a button. There shouldn't be a problem, and absolutely call me if there is, but accidents do happen. So that should be it. Thank you for watching. I hope that you find it easy to install. If you have any questions, please convo me or give me an email or call.